So if you've been doing stroke hand exercises and find that your hand just isn't improving, or maybe you feel like it's even getting tighter, it's almost never because your hand can't recover. It's probably because you're doing exercises built for the wrong stage of recovery. The wrong exercises for a floppy hand, and movement never starts to come back. And the wrong exercises for a tight spastic hand, and you're just feeding the very tightness that you're fighting. So before we get into the exercises you should be doing, we first need to ask what stage of recovery your hand is actually in. Because the right exercises depend on where your nervous system is in the recovery timeline. So let me walk you through all 6 stages, and then I'll give you the best exercises for each one. To know what exercises to focus on, we need to understand this graph. Stroke recovery typically follows this curve, and it's really just a picture of how your nervous system progresses as you get your arm back. And we'll go through each stage in more detail throughout the video. And if you want to know your exact stage of recovery for your hand and your arm, there's a free 2-minute quiz linked below in the description that'll help you pin it down. Now, let's go through each of the best hand exercises to start with at each stage of recovery. So let's start at the very beginning with a hand that can't move on its own yet. It feels flaccid or floppy. Maybe there's a small flicker of movement. Maybe your arm moves a little bit when you yawn or sneeze, or maybe nothing's happening at all. And look at where that puts you on the graph. Right down here at the very bottom. The tone is low. It's barely firing. And that's the start of your recovery. And it tells you something important, that the signal from your brain to the hand has gone quiet. There's no movement to build on yet. So trying to train the hand directly with hand exercises is a dead end. I've grouped stages 1 and 2 together because the line between them is really just about how much flicker has shown up. But the job is the same for both. And so is the exercise. So here's the mistake almost everyone makes here. They go looking for hand exercises, squeezing, gripping, finger drills, and try to force the hand to do something that it physically can't do yet. And when nothing happens, they feel like they're failing, but you're not failing. At this stage, the hand isn't the problem to solve. The brain is. The connection between your brain and that hand went quiet, and your only job right now is to start waking that connection back up. So you can't rep your way there with a hand that won't move. You're gonna have to get the brain stimulated in a different way. So for stages 1 and 2, the best exercise to start with is mirror therapy. Many of you have probably seen this before. You can build one for about $5 or get one online, but it's gonna hide your affected arm and it's going to mirror what your unaffected hand is gonna be doing. And to the brain, it looks like the affected hand is moving, and that visual tricks the brain into firing the pathway on that weak side. So no movement is required for this intervention. That's the whole point. And it's really one of the only exercises that works with 0 movement. So do that, and you're finally going to give the brain the input it's been waiting for, instead of just yelling at a hand that can't answer yet. But once movement has started to come back, you've taken the first real step. You've gotten that connection from the brain to the arm firing again. But now comes stage 3, which is relearning how to move it the way you want. In stage 3, the movement is starting to come back, but it's stuck in a stiff synergy pattern. And that's the trap. The hand starts to move a little bit more, but it's stiff and everything fires at once. That's what we call a synergy. So you go to open your hand or squeeze your hand and your whole arm pulls instead. The elbow bends, the shoulder rises. It's all stuck and wired on the same switch. And that tightness, that spasticity, well, it's showing up now too. At this stage, the problem isn't that the muscle is weak. It's that the muscle is overfiring and it's stuck on. And look at where you are on that curve. You're right here at the highest your tone will ever be in your recovery. Way up here above that dotted line, which is your normal resting tone. And that's why stage 3 is the trap. You've gotten the most tightness working against you at the very moment you're tempted to push harder because you finally got that movement back. So piling reps onto a hand that's already stuck on just builds more tension. You're not training movement, you're feeding the tightness, and you're strengthening that synergy pattern. So there really are 2 main jobs in stage 3, and they have to happen in order. First, we need to calm down that tightness, and then and only then can we start training movement. And most people skip the step 1 on calming the tightness and go straight to the training, and that's why they're stuck in this stage. So the best exercise to start with in stage 3 is tens. And yes, I mean that. I recently ranked 18 spasticity treatments based on the science and 10s landed up near the top. It's affordable and accessible and easily doable at home. So 10s is a small electrical stimulation unit. You've probably seen them. You probably own one. They are different from neuromuscular electrical stimulation, but some devices do both. But what you're going to do with your 10s is place your electrodes on your tight and spastic muscles, not the weak muscles like with your neuromuscular, but on the tight spastic muscles. And when you turn on the 10s, it's going to send some gentle signals, sensory signals to the muscles, helping them relax. So it's not directly making your hand move, but it's going to turn down the volume on the tightness in your spastic muscles so that your hand can move. But here's the part most people miss. 10s is not the workout. It makes the workout possible. Calming the tone doesn't build control on its own, but it opens a window. And the real gain comes from what you do in that window. So training actual movement while your hand is quiet. So stage 3 is about getting that tone quiet, so the hand is finally ready to be trained, which is where stage 4 comes in, because this is where the movement starts breaking free of that synergy pattern. So stage 4 is breaking free of the synergy. So the tightness is settling down and something new happens. Your hand starts to move on its own. A finger twitches open. The elbow straightens a little bit without the whole arm coming along. This is the stage everyone has been waiting for. The synergy is finally starting to break. And look at where that puts you on the curve. You're coming down off that peak. The tone is easing, which means for the first time, you've got room to actually train movement instead of just fighting tightness. But here's the mistake. People get this movement and go straight for strength, grippers, putty, squeezing as hard as they can. But strength was never the missing piece. Control is. Your hand can already close. That's the easy direction. What it forgot how to do is move one part at a time without the whole arm firing along. And that's the synergy. And it is breaking, but it is the whole job for stage 4. So the best thing you can do here is train exactly that, moving one part without the rest of the arm coming along. And where you start really depends on how much movement you've already gotten back. If there's barely any movement yet, start with neuromuscular electrical stimulation. Now, this is different from the 10s we talked about earlier. 10s quiets an overfiring muscle, but neuromuscular electrical stimulation does the opposite. It fires a quiet muscle. So with neuromuscular electrical stimulation, place the electrodes on the back of the forearm, and as you attempt to open your hand or extend your wrist, the device will produce the contraction you can't make on your own yet, and your brain gets the full pattern. So it's really just the jump start for getting that movement back that isn't quite there yet. But once you have a little bit of movement, work it in a gravity eliminated plane, which means resting your forearm on its side with your thumb pointing up, and practice opening and closing the fingers in a way that gravity is not fighting on it as much. You can also use your other hand to assist with getting more range of motion, but try to make sure that your affected hand is doing most, if not all, the work. And as your hand gets stronger and stronger, what I want you to do is move to a plane where you're working against gravity. So rotate your palm up and then work on opening and closing the hand. And in this stage, once you get to this point in stage 4, if you notice that when you're opening it up, you're getting some shoulder hiking and your elbow is starting to move, then that's a signal that your synergy is starting to kick back in. So you want to reduce the effort and focus on just getting only the hand opening and closing. So all 3 of these exercises in stage 4 are working the same skill. They're just meeting your hand where it actually is. And remember, fewer, cleaner reps beats 100 where that synergy is firing. Stage 5 is making the arm functional. At this point, you've got real movement in your hand and arm, but what you've nailed in your exercises doesn't always translate to the functional tasks that you need to get done. And that's the frustrating part of this stage, is that you're so close to getting that arm back to what it was before your stroke, but it's still not quite usable in moderate to advanced functional tasks. But look at where you are on the curve here. The tone has settled. You're almost back to baseline, which is the whole point of stage 5. This isn't a nervous system problem anymore. Your hand can do the movements. What it can't do yet is do them when and where real life asks for it. But here's the mistake that keeps people stuck right here. They keep doing more drilling exercises, more finger reps, more of the same movements in the same chair. But your hand already has those movements, and repeating them one more time doesn't close the gap. The gap is between the exercise and the task. So the best thing you can do at stage 5 is stop practicing movements and start practicing tasks. So instead of opening and closing your hand 20 times, try pouring yourself a glass of water. Instead of doing your finger reps, try buttoning a shirt, stirring a pot, picking up a mug and setting it back down. These are the same movements as the exercises, but now they're wrapped inside something real, with real weight, real timing, and a real goal. And that's what forces your brain to connect movement to functional use. And it matters that the task you are doing is something you actually care about, because your brain actually pays attention to tasks that mean something to you. So pouring a drink you're about to drink beats squeezing a ball you'll never use. So the more real it is, the harder your brain works to make it automatic. So the reps you did to get the movement aren't the reps that are going to make it usable. That's a different stage with a different job. Which leaves us to one last stretch, because there's a difference between an arm that works and an arm you don't have to think about. And that's what stage 6 is for. Stage 6 is the finish line. And it's the stage that almost nobody talks about, because from the outside looking in, it looks like you're done. Your arm works, you can do most things, but you still have to think about it. And every time you reach for something, there's a split second where you have to plan that movement out. It's slower than the other side. It fatigues faster. And of course, the fine motor stuff, handwriting, a zipper, typing, flipping a coin on a flat table. All those things still aren't quite there yet. And look at the graph. You're flat on the tone line, right back at baseline. So tone isn't the issue here. Fine motor control is. And getting that arm to be more automatic. And here's a mistake at stage 6. People plateau because they keep doing their therapy fine motor drills and exercises. They're still treating their arm like a project. But like with stage 5, you can't drill your way out of stage 6 to make it automatic. The last thing your brain needs isn't more repetitions, it's more real life. So the best thing you can do at stage 6 is put your arm back into things that actually matter for you, but are a little bit more challenging than the activities in stage 5. Things like cooking a whole meal, getting back into the garden, write out a card by hand, play with your grandkids, practice typing on your computer. Things that you would do before your stroke. So purposeful activity is the single most powerful driver of neuroplasticity there is. And at stage 6, you're finally ready for it. Because here's the thing, your brain doesn't automate a movement by practicing it, it automates it by using it over and over and over again in the middle of doing something you actually care about. And that's what takes your arm from, yeah, it works, to you don't even need to think about it anymore. And that's the whole point of every stage before this one. Everything we've been doing has been working on getting you back to this point where you don't have to think about using that arm again. So that's all 6 stages, and here's the takeaway. Every stage has a different job, which is why stage 2's work does nothing at stage 5, and stage 5's work at stage 3 can honestly set you back. And that brings me back to what I said at the start of the video. Most people are doing the wrong exercises for their stage of recovery. So if you want to know exactly what stage your hand and arm are in, go down, take that 2-minute quiz in the description, completely free. It's just a couple questions to figure out what your hand can and can't do, and it'll tell you exactly what stage you're in. And it'll give you some additional exercises that you can do for your hand as well. So link is in the description, check it out, and I'll see you in the next one.